Will JJ have a relationship with his biological father, Groff?
What's in store for Pope's future?
Is it possible for Rafe and Sarah to get along?
And where will the Pogues find the Blue Crown?
Red and Red Real Reviews embarks on a wild chase to Morocco in Netflix's Outer Banks, Season 4, Part 2.
Ahoy, ladies! I didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor?
Randall, look at eye contact, please. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Staring at this board for days.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Act. Bears eat beets.
My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I am the one who knocks.
Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh my god. The microchip has been compromised.
Dracarys.
And welcome back. I cannot believe we're already here at the second half of the Outer Banks thing. Can you?
They only made us wait like 3 weeks. It was kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like we just did this like last week, but a little bit of time has passed. So I actually, the excitement was heightening, but didn't have as much time as I thought I would to get excited about the second half and be like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. So, obviously I wasn't sure what was awaiting us. We left off knowing that Groff was JJ's dad. So we didn't really know what was going to come from that relationship. And then we kind of just like jumped right into it after that. So, obviously, like, we both love this show. We've watched it for 4 seasons. We're into it, but I just thought it would be fun to kind of discuss some funny observations or things I noticed about the show, especially in the second half.
Is this a tell them why you mad or no?
No, it's not really a rant or anything. Like, I just like, these are things that obviously, it's a show. So there are, I wouldn't say inconsistencies, but there are things that are probably not very realistic, right? So you have all these, you're just kind of watching the kids run around, right? So one thing I noticed is that these kids are never home, right? They go days and days like out on the run, like they're never at home, nor do they really have a home at this point to go back to. So they're just kind of running around. They're never in any one place for too long. So how do any of them have working cell phones? Like, when do they ever have a couple hours to charge their cell phones?
So the funny part is to me, I actually thought of this, but not from a battery electricity standpoint. I thought of it from the fact that they're always jumping off a boat or swimming or diving into water in some capacity, and they're always calling each other like the next scene. And I'm like, there's no way those phones should be functional right now. They're wet, they're full of water. There's zero, like, I don't see a waterproof case. I don't see a little plastic baggie that they're keeping in their pocket. Like,
yeah, isn't there one phone like a Samsung Galaxy that like claims to be completely waterproof or something? Or there are certain like phone cases that claim to be waterproof.
If it was any of them, it would be a Samsung Galaxy, because they always pride themselves on trying to be better than Apple.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing that I thought is kind of crazy. I'm just like, okay. And then the fact that Groff, like, to prevent JJ from finding out from Kiara, that Kiara is calling him, he throws JJ's phone in the water and then like makes a comment like, oh, well, I'll buy you a new one. Like, you're going to have the best of the best from now on. Like, I just thought it was funny that like they're like kind of addressing the phone ridiculousness, but not addressing it.
And that moment bothered me from the sense, like, when did he get JJ's phone? Did he like pick his pocket or something?
No, he asked him for it. I think when they were in the car or something, he's like, oh, hey, can I have your phone? Like, mine's all out of juice, or mine's dead. Can I have yours? And JJ was like, oh, yeah, sure, here. So that's how he got it.
JJ didn't care about contacting his friends then if he never asked for his phone back.
Yeah. So, another thing,
Talking about something unrealistic, a teenager not wanting their phone back.
yeah, they should be like they're like
Yeah,
zombied out, right? Um, if they're real teenagers.
yeah.
And then this is a little bit more, I wouldn't say jarring, but it's a little more important. So they never eat, like ever, and they go days or hours without eating. Yet they're running around with literally running around with zero energy and like very athletic and jumping things and climbing things. So they have like all this like crazy energy and stamina. I mean, I guess we could argue it's adrenaline because they probably have zero energy, especially when Sarah wasn't feeling good in Morocco. And so literally Key says, "Oh man, you haven't eaten anything in like 2 days. Like, we really got to get you something." It's like, you haven't eaten anything in 2 days? Like, are you kidding me?
And you're pregnant?
Yeah. Like, that was just insane to me that like they're doing all this physically demanding stuff when they hardly eat. So that is like obviously very unrealistic.
I wish
And
I had the
then
metabolism of a Pogue.
I know, so do I. I mean, they are like 19, so that's long in the past for me and you, but
Yeah, that's why they probably have a 0.03% body fat.
probably. Yeah, how Sarah's always running around in crop tops, like
Yeah,
crop tops and shorts even when it looks like it's cold and she's like wet and starving.
yeah.
And then the third thing that I thought was funny is that they actually did acknowledge this in the final episode of the season. So they finally acknowledge the fact that they smell because, obviously they're all walking around looking like all manicured and stuff when they haven't eaten for several days. They're literally on the run. And I was like, they never have access to showers if they're never in one place at one time. And it was funny that they finally acknowledged it to be like, "Oh man, you smell bad. Oh, you smell bad." Like, because you just, you see all these like hot people that are on the run. You're just like, how could they not stink like the worst BO you've ever smelled in your life?
Well, it's kind of like you know how you don't smell your own farts. It's kind of like maybe it's like when you all smell like pig pen. None of you smell like pig pen because it's just your existence at that point.
I love that comparison, but for real, I learned in seventh grade from our science teacher, and this stuck with me because she taught a bunch of seventh graders that are, that puberty age of like 12 years old. She taught us that you cannot smell your own body odor. So that's why you may not be aware of it because you're used to the smell. It's the same way that like you wear the same perfume for years. So like you don't even smell it on yourself anymore. But then you decide to start using a different perfume and you're like, "Holy hell, that's strong," because you're not used to the smell.
It's like, does my breath stink? The thing that I think I got past with the food thing was that these are pretty roughneck kids. So I find it believable that they do have kind of some bushcraft skills.
Yeah.
Um, but they also you never see them with equipment. It's not like they always have fishing rods on them or nets to you know to presume that okay they just fished out a trout or something and cooked that up for supper.
Yeah, and the only scene was when they were on Rafe's boat and they had caught some fish. So obviously they had the equipment in
Hmm.
that circumstance, but any other time when they're trying to like forage for food, they don't have anything.
Fish lasted them a long time through the desert, I guess.
I guess so. So let's just kind of get right into it, I guess. So we have a lot to talk about. We really didn't exchange any sort of, and I kind of didn't want to talk about anything in messages, before this, just so we could kind of talk about what went on because it's pretty crazy.
I
So
also I also kind of blame that on just a busy week for Red and Red.
yeah, I mean it's
A
been a
lot of
busy
shows.
week. So yeah, it's been a crazy week in more ways than one. So in the first half of the season, we did talk about how we had a lot of subplots up in the air. So the second half of the season tied up a lot of those subplots, but were there's what were the things that still remain as loose ends in your mind, or were there things that you thought were kind of abruptly tied up?
Well, I know that the first one you wrote down was ZZ was that
Mm,
situation where JJ kind of lights his office on fire and tears up the town, and then of course he's sitting there. He wants the land that their surf shop's on, and and he's going after Shoop, and they had the little the hearing, the public hearing, and all that stuff. So I guess there's not really a resolution that can be reached at that point because there's got to be probably paperwork and signatures and witnesses and all that
right.
stuff. Um, but that one didn't necessarily leave me unfulfilled as uh, a loose end because I just figure at some point they're going to have to come back to Kildare.
Right.
So I just kind of figured like, well, when they get home, they're just gonna be right back and figuring this shit out. So
Right.
that one I kind of like passed off in my head as something like, all right, we'll get to
It's
that.
still right. It's still an open loose end. Like it hasn't been resolved, but obviously once they get back from, in season 5, I'm assuming, once they get back from finding Groff, hopefully, that at that point they'll go back to Kildare, and like we don't know what the state is of Poglandia. It was just like in this second half of the season, like we saw ZZ once, I think. It was at that town
Hmm.
meeting or hearing, zoning
He
hearing.
was he was running after Shoop when Shoop was going off to find him. That was where I remember seeing him in the second half.
Yeah, I
Just
just remember
running
seeing
after
him at
Shoop.
the zoning meeting. And he speaks at the zoning meeting for a second, but and then JJ did trash his office, but that was literally all we saw of him in those five episodes.
Yeah. I guess what I was remembering was the last time I saw him because I guess in my brain, once they were on the boat and gone, I kind of like put everything in the back of my mind that happened in town.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really the only thing that I saw as being like the only loose end that wasn't resolved. I mean, even, I was questioning whether the Shoop thing was resolved. I mean, it seems like it will be if they can deliver Groff and he can take
Yeah.
credit for it, then he'll be good with them, I think.
Especially because I think Shoop he doesn't want to admit it or he feels like he can't admit it openly, but I think he's on their side with that because
Yeah.
he's already digging around and seeing all these red flags with Groff. So
He sees
I
who the
don't necessarily
players are. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think Groff is the pseudo antagonist that he's been in the past.
Right. So then there were a couple of what I thought were sort of abrupt tie-ups. One of these was the role that Hollis played in this second half of the season. It was sort of non-existent. Then she was just killed by Groff, and that was it. So it was just very, she was a lot more prominent in the first half of the season with the whole deal with Rafe, and then
Mm.
she was like coming on to Rafe and stuff. And then this part of the season, like there were a couple moments where Hollis and Groff were kind of conspiring together, but like she just really wasn't important as a side character or villain, or it just kind of shifted to Groff and went off of her, and then it was just like he killed her, and then that was literally it.
Yeah, and not just with Rafe, but she's working Sophia as well.
But
Um,
yeah.
it I I thought it was looking in hindsight. I thought it was wrapped up quickly. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily felt it was abrupt only because when she presents the will to him or the
Mhm.
trust to him, and she says, "You lied to me. You're not in Generet's
Yeah.
final will and testament at all." And to me, at that point, her story arc's over.
Well,
So
it was like when she confronted him, that was the end of her because he wasn't going to
right,
stand for that. And we know that he kind of has a history of violence.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't totally abrupt, but for me it was just like a little bit, it was kind of similar to how Zizi was like such a problem in the first half and then wasn't in this, like barely non-existent in the second half, and it was the same thing for Hollis that I saw.
yeah. It's like their existence as antagonists is just to make life a living hell for the main characters,
Mm,
as opposed to being something consistent. So I guess when I'm watching a show and I see someone as kind of like this little subtle pain in the rear end, I'm kind of like once they're gone, I don't shed a tear over it. As long as it
yeah,
makes sense, as long as it makes sense to the story, which once that was once that part was kind of blown up with the thoughts of who's got the money and who can invest what on Goat Island, that sort of thing. Once that was kind of blown up, she's irrelevant to the story. So it kind
yeah.
of didn't. I kind of was like, well, whatever. I mean, she didn't. After this point, she didn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a like that happens, you're just kind of like, okay, I guess
Yeah,
moving on. And then the fact that this was sort of odd to me, and I don't know if you got the same feeling from it. So another sort of abrupt tie up to me was the fact that Groff literally admits to killing Larissa. He
hmm.
says, I think he admits that he snapped. He says that he killed her. I think JJ asks him outright, and he says he did. Oh, well, I snapped.
Yeah,
Or,
or at bare minimum, he severely implied it.
right. So, and then JJ doesn't even like reference that after, even in the moment where Groff falls into that hole, like when he's in that struggle with Rafe and he falls in the hole, and then later Groff hears somebody and he realizes that JJ is at the top of the, I don't know if it's a well, an empty well, or
It's a
what the hell
yeah,
it
I think it's
is.
a well. Yeah.
So he's like, JJ, is that you up there? And then JJ is like, oh, well, I can't believe I thought that you were different and blah blah blah. But he doesn't even address like, you killed my mother. Like,
I feel like, especially because their reconnect was over such a short period of time, they really didn't have a chance to build up emotion to each other, and he doesn't know his mother any more than he knows Groff. And JJ is the type of person, I feel like he's the type of person in life that when you burn him, he's done with you.
yeah,
He will turn tail, go in the opposite direction, and never speak to you again. I think he's that type of person in life. Like he's a real person. His character is that type of person in life. Um, so, and in his defense, as soon as that interaction happened, he got thrown off the boat. So you talk about this, you have this disclosure where it's clear or implied that he killed JJ's birth mother. You also have the realization that he did something to Kiara. You don't at this point he doesn't know what. At this point he thinks Croft killed her. But
right,
he knows he did something to Kiara, who's the love of his life.
yeah,
And on top of that, I think because I remember this like really sharp zoom, Groff's got his hand up on the rigging of the boat, and JJ sees the Corsair's
yeah,
tattoo. So you've got like all these things, all these like highly emotional events happening to put the pieces together in JJ's head, and then he's tossed off, tossed off starboard, or I guess
yeah.
port. Yeah, he's tossed off the port side of the boat. So I'm like, I kind of like at that point I'm like, well, I wouldn't have time to process this either. And when I see him in the well, I'm thinking, you're a POS down there. Like you're right now, you're not telling me anything or doing anything that surprises me from convincing me that you're the POS that you really are.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just thought that, even if I didn't know somebody very well and like I kind of suspected or like they sort of implied that they had killed someone, I like obviously I'm done with them because I'm like, okay, if they killed somebody, they're gonna go after me. Like my life is in danger. And I don't, well, also like I don't wanna be around someone who killed like it's just
Yeah.
not. So I don't know. I thought it was a little odd that they didn't really bring that up again. So you had sort of a loose end or abrupt tie up.
Yeah, the only other one that I would add to this is Sophia because she's part of this redemption arc of Rafe,
Mm,
and like we have the feeling that like knowing all the stuff from the audience's perspective, knowing all the stuff that Rafe has done, you think he's true to his word when he says, "I guarantee whatever you're gonna tell me isn't as bad as what I've
yeah,
done."
yeah,
So for the realization of Sophia's role in Hollis's manipulation of Rafe, for him to realize that and him just go like, "Bye, bitch, I'm done with you. Get out of my house, pack up." Like that kind of felt like such a 180 from this
yeah.
little redemption angle that we see playing out with Rafe. I'm kind of like, it's like Rafe should know. Like, yeah, that's bad. Yeah, she stabbed him in the back a little bit, but he even said it outright. Like Rafe should know. Like, yeah, I have done some pretty messed up stuff. And as messed up as that is, it's probably still not as bad as, killing someone.
Right. And like I think that yeah, that was a little bit confusing because you really thought that they had a genuine connection.
Hmm.
And the fact that he's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter what you've done. Like I've done way worse." And then she tells him what or she finds out, well, maybe because it wasn't coming from her. That's the only thing I can think of is
Yeah,
but
came
still she
from
tried to
Groff.
tell him. So like you're going to fault her for that when she tried to tell you and you were like, "Oh, doesn't matter." But then you're going to get pissed about it when you hear someone else say that. Like
Yeah,
it just didn't really seem fair. So
and
yeah,
and
I
it
don't
did.
know.
And to your point,
Yeah.
it did seem genuine, hardly the superficial Topper Ruthie relationship.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we'll see that in the fifth season. Maybe we'll see Sophia. Maybe he'll have a moment of regret where he was like, listen, like, I do really love you. I didn't mean that. I was just going through this thing. I
Mm,
was upset. Things were crazy. Like, I don't know.
yeah,
Hopefully, like, this isn't the end of what we see of her. Like, I just thought it was very strange that he wrote her off, especially after prefacing it with, like, oh, I don't care what you do or what you did.
yeah, yep, yeah. Being the
Yeah.
bigger man and turning on its tail
Right.
like that. Mhm.
Yeah, so speaking of being the bigger man, so let's talk more about Rafe. I don't know if we can get a hashtag going of Rafe Redemption. Um,
Justice for Rafe? That doesn't work, does
Justice for Rafe,
it?
hashtag Rafe Redemption. That's what I'm
Yeah,
going for.
Rafe Redemption.
But but do you think that he has fully redeemed himself this season? Because I mean, I know that this actor, Drew Starkey, he's like probably the favorite of the Outer Banks world. Like he just if you go on any post about the show, like people are just like, I love Rafe, I love Drew Starkey, like always talking about him. So I know the fans absolutely love him and they love the actor. So for me, I personally felt like nice Rafe equals like hot Rafe. Like it makes him more attractive when he's nice. So I was really rooting for him. Like I just really wanted them to give him a chance, and I wanted him to be true to his word that he was trying and that he was changing. So, were you rooting for him? Like, how do you think he did as far as his redemption arc?
I think it's set up for that total forgiveness. I don't
Mm,
necessarily know whether what we saw towards the end here fully absolves him, but it's putting him in prime position
mm,
to be in that position because ultimately Rafe still has a long history of being untrustworthy.
yes.
But I think right now he is in very, very strong position from an overall perspective. I think from a macro level, his coming to peace moment where he rescues the Pogues on the beach
Yeah.
with Shoop, and he like throws himself on the fire with Shoop. It's like, listen, if you let me take them and get this guy back, I'll own up to the tarmac situation.
Hmm.
I know you want to know that. Like he's he's using his own errors and fraud and past crimes that were covered up or not seen as a bargaining chip, which someone like Rafe, from what we've seen, that is not something that Rafe would do.
Right. He was really trying and trying to pitch in evenly, which takes a lot of courage to do something like that, to admit your own shortcoming and then offer that as a reason to help others and try to get others out of a pickle.
And I almost feel like the show is giving us the carrot on the carrot on the hook situation.
What do you mean?
Carrot on the stick, or the dangling carrot.
Yeah, dangling carrot. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not good with expressions. So they almost like they're throwing that out there for us because we see this and everyone's like, Rafe's the good guy now, yes. And then what happens on the boat? They say, JJ, just stay over here. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And they go talk to Rafe, and sure enough, JJ comes in and knocks him out. And then Rafe's over there screaming bloody murder at them because he's tied up in the corner. So it's like, and now, all this like buildup of Rafe being friends with them, he's not going to trust them again because JJ knocked him out, and they tied him up in the corner.
Yeah, and then actually I was a little surprised when Pope says like, "Oh, well, if you weren't going to do it, I was going to do it." So it's like I don't know. I was like, "Come on, guys, like just give him a chance to mess up." You know what I mean?
I think I think if memory serves me correctly, like way back in the like season 1, maybe even season 2, Pope had a very in I don't want to say restrictive, abrasive. Pope had a very abrasive relationship with the Kooks. So it kind of, if I'm remembering that correctly, so to me it kind of makes sense that JJ hates the Kooks the most, and then Pope would hate them the most after that.
I sort of feel like they all do though, because I mean, you could say that Key is sort of a kook, and so she's kind of on an even playing field with Rafe, them both being kind of well off, and she like, what I sort of feel like they were setting up this redemption arc so that Rafe could kind of be a part of the team. Hear me out.
Yeah.
And he has like, I feel like he has sort of chemistry or like in the form of tension with Kiara. Right?
Rebound? Will they, won't they?
I don't know. I sort of feel like he's going to become, we'll talk about it more, but I think they're setting it up for him to become a part of the crew. Like now that, Sarah's good with him, and it took a long while to get there because they're just, like he was actually openly trusting them, and then they would do something where it's like, you're taking 2 steps forward, you're taking 2 steps back. So it's like he would really extend the olive branch, and then they just sort of just like, you can't be trusted. Never mind. Like,
yeah,
so it's difficult.
And as to your point, as far as Rafe's part of the crew now, I think a lot of that is set up by interactions with them as well. You have one where JJ's climbing the statue to see if he can find the crown up there, and Rafe like in berserker mode, right? So like he wants the crown, but he also is like trying to fight the Corsairs at the same time. And JJ runs up to Rafe, and he's ready to climb. It's like, you'll get your cut. So it's like JJ, who's not willing to share anything with Rafe, or probably any kook overall, is telling Rafe like, hey, don't worry, you're in this with us. We got you. You'll get what's owed to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get the crown. So that kind of felt like a pseudo forgiveness moment in that, like, if JJ and Rafe can put the shit aside, then the rest of them can put it aside.
Yeah, because they're just, ever since he was the whole reason that they got out of the situation unscathed, where he got this ship and then brought them to Morocco. And then, when they punch him out, they like basically have him like tied up in this little room, bringing him food like he's a prisoner. And it's like, where they were was because of him. Like, they could have trusted him a little bit more than that. Like, you don't have to be best friends with the guy, but trust him a little bit more than that, considering what he did for you. And then, like, I get that they didn't trust him fully, but like they were just like treating him like dirt on purpose. Like, they left him behind in Morocco, and at least John B, him and Rafe are like, have always been like this. Rafe doesn't like the fact that this slob is with his sister, like, so at least John B had the sense to be like, okay, I'm asking you because this is your brother. Do you want to go back?
Yeah.
Like, he was courteous about it, and he was level-headed about it.
I think, generally speaking, over the life of this series, as John B and Sarah have progressed, John B wants to forgive Rafe, but every time it's like the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back thing. Like every time he thinks he's getting close to being able to move forward with Rafe, something happens to push him back to, I can't trust Rafe. That kind of mindset.
And I think what it was for me is that I think it's that issue, that unresolved thing that Rafe is hanging on to, that prevents him from being able to fully trust them, and like being able to take steps forward and not take steps back, because he's got this he's harboring all this animosity over their father's death and blaming Sarah for it, and all of that. So that's like when he goes to the bait shop and he tells Key like, oh, here's my card or whatever, like, I want Sarah to call me, or I want to meet up with Sarah. And then she goes to see him. She kind of goes out of there being like, you know what, I can't work together with you. Even though he really sucked it up and was like, listen, we need to work together to see our sister. Rose is preventing us from seeing her. We got to work together. And then she's kind of like unsure. And then he mentioned something about the death of their father. And then she's like, nope, sorry, can't help you if you're going to be like that. And then that comes up again, and they have a blowout where she's like, listen, Dad died protecting me. Like, I had these people who were like, I had several people who were going to shoot me, and Dad died protecting me. So like, forget what you thought about how that happened, and you have to like let it go. And that's when he was able to finally like let that hang up go. And I think he kind of like, doesn't he kind of like, he's like ready to hand somebody like the scroll, and she just like hugs him.
Yeah, I think Rafe knows deep down inside that Ward doesn't want he and Sarah at each other's throats.
Yes.
I think he knows it deep down inside, and I don't know whether it's his own like alpha male tendencies, like he can't project himself in a position of weakness or vulnerability. Like, I don't know if it's something as simple as that, or it's him being able to trust John B, because kooks, pogues, they see them as beneath, as below them. So maybe it's something where he doesn't see John B as good enough for Sarah. So there's some there's some resentment in that capacity. So like you're spot on as far as there's something preventing Rafe from kind of jumping the chasm, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's just the problem was they had never hashed that out before, so that was what was preventing them from moving forward. Other than that, like, he's in the past season, he's really gotten his shit together. Like, of course he had that money from the cross or whatever, so that made him able to enter that deal with Hollis and enter some real estate deals and things like that. But it was adult of him to try to meet with Sarah and try to get to her friends so that he could meet with her face to face. It was adult of him to go to Shoop and say, listen, Hollis and Groff screwed me over. Like, you need to be looking at them. Like, I'll supply any information you want, but they screwed me over. Like, I need you to look into this. Like, and just the fact that he was willing to offer up his own errors, as you mentioned, to help them out, that just shows a selflessness, like where you're just like, yay, he's growing, he's changing.
And I think what could be the cherry on top for this is that last scene where they're oh, sorry, I don't want to spoil it.
Well, we'll talk about that very shortly. So yeah. Just
where they're kind of feeling down, or they're feeling down on themselves, understandably so. And Rafe's like, listen, if it was me, I'd want to go after this guy. I want my vengeance. And that almost kind of acts as a trigger to Kiara, like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of to me that's like the icing on the cake as far as, or could be, because I'm still like not 100% there, but that could be the icing on the cake towards Rafe. I'm part of the team now.
Yeah, that's what I saw as being like, not like he's replacing him, but he that kind of leaves a spot open in the team, and he's the one that has the same kind of fighting spirit that's gonna take them through things. So yeah, I mean, I guess let's just talk about it then. So I mean,
elephant in the room.
I know. I waited as long as possible to talk about the huge glaring spoiler, just because, I've seen all these because of that audio issue that Netflix had with the episodes. A lot of people are upset because, they're reading spoilers by accident. I sort of saw something, not fully. I read something that said Outer Banks killed off a major character. They didn't say who, but I knew that somebody was dying and it was a major character. So actually, funnily, I don't know if funnily is a word, oddly enough, I, we talked about the fact that the fans were saying that they think that JJ is going to be killed, that they're setting this up, like focusing on his story so much so that he can be killed off. And I didn't really pay the, like, I don't know, fans want what they want, or they say crazy things, like they're not always right. So I didn't really believe that personally. For me, it was kind of between Rafe, and I did have a little bit of doubt about JJ, but there were things that made me think that it could be Rafe, just the fact that, especially when the moment that he surprisingly like proposed to Sophia, I was like, wow, like I know he's changed, but I just did not expect him to do that. And he's like, I want you to live in my apartment, I mean, our place. And, that whole moment where he was like, I want you here to come back to. And so I was like, damn, I was like, they might be setting it up for like him to have redeemed himself, and then he gets killed. Like I could have seen that happening.
I think you tricked yourself out of your gut reaction, because I remember when we did the first half, and I don't remember it was in the show or it was off air, but you were saying because of the actors Rudy Penko's own aspirations that you were concerned that they were gonna find a way to write JJ out of this, and it was odd. Like I didn't see any spoilers that said somebody was killed off, but I saw enough angsty, angry keyboard type that I knew something was going to happen that people
something major
like.
where people were upset.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, hey, you might have called this, but you were concerned about it because they were using the season to set JJ up as the star of the season. So it's like, why, it's like, why would they build him up if they weren't gonna, build up the peak to fall off of, I
mean, I guess we'll talk about it a little bit more. But as far like I think we're going to go through in a bit like the foreshadowing that that's what was going to happen, that they were going to kill JJ off, and like these are the signs that look in hindsight that pointed towards him being killed off. But I mean, as far as the actual moment itself, what did you think of the actual moment when Groff like stabbed him? Because I don't know, I had subtitles on and it said like fleshy squelching or something when he
Yeah, I
stabbed him, and
remember
I was like,
Flesh.
really, they had to do that? Come on, that's not very respectful.
Well, I mean, he was. I'm kind of like, you know, maybe not vocally, but I'm like cursing out Groff when I see it because it's like this this asshole, this POS. He's like
Mm,
spent his entire season trying to, and we know he's a scumbag, but like,
yeah.
it's still a father-son relationship. Like maybe there is something sentimental there. So we spend this whole season watching them reclaim their relationship that never was, and for him to just go to JJ has after JJ has already given him the crown. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
Kiara's my real prize. Give me Kiara back. Don't
Right.
hurt her. Here is the crown. So you've got this potential sentimental thing that may be real. He's got the prize. He's got the crown. And then for him to go and stab him, and not just like stab him quick and
Right.
get out of dodge, to like force the knife in, twist it around, really cause some internal damage there, and
Yeah.
then make it about something so petty as not throwing the rope down the well. I'm thinking, I want to see this man burn.
Well, like JJ gave him the blue crown. Like he wasn't a threat. So why did you have to do that?
Yeah, pettiness, just a petty villain.
He didn't have to do that. I mean, so I mean like we can say that he's literally the worst villain ever of this show.
Oh yeah, this guy is way worse than Ward.
Yeah.
Ward was just greedy. Ward was just greedy, and he,
Mm,
unfairly put his children in positions where they were manipulated. So I mean, he's not winning Father of the Year by any stretch of the
right.
imagination, but he also still loved Rafe and Sarah. Like he would never
Yeah.
do anything to harm them.
Right.
So like this guy takes all the cakes.
Yeah. I don't know. So I had a few thoughts. Um I like John B's voiceover was what really got to me after, like,
Heavy.
talking about like friendship or everyone is going to die at some point, or I don't remember what he said, but his monologue I think was the hardest part of that whole scene. And I'm not saying that like JJ could have been saved. Like maybe he was past the point because like Groff got him really badly in the gut.
Oh yeah, there's no
Like
yeah, there's no
so
protecting
maybe he
that.
couldn't have been saved. Maybe he was kind of past the point of saving, but I do sort of wish that Kiara had like called everyone over sooner. Like once she saw how much blood there was and like how bad the wound was, like maybe she instinctively like knew that he was done, and she was just like, I'm just going to be in here with him for his last moments. But I just kind of wish that she had sort of sprung into action a little bit. Like, am I terrible for saying that? Like, just to try to do something. Like, she's just sitting there crying. Like, is that helping? Like,
It's,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
save for helicopter dropping in and picking him up, which I don't even know if that would have made a difference anyway, just because of the severity of the bleed. There was no way to save him. There was no way to save him. So I would shy more towards your alternative plot of she just wanted to be there for him in his final moments,
Yeah.
because we also have to remember this ruin site is huge. I mean, we're
Yeah.
watching Rafe and John B run around with the Corsairs fighting them, and Pope and Cleo are way the heck over here. Like they're not even near any of them either. So Kiara has no idea where any of her friends are.
And there's a sandstorm, so I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that's a factor too.
So even if she like screamed at the top of her lungs, like there's no guarantee that anyone's gonna hear her. So like I mean I'll give her a pass on that, especially in the just severe emotion of the moment. You know,
Mm,
JJ and Kiara was a long built up love story that they
yeah,
never really got the happy moments that John B and Sarah got, or
yeah,
even Pope and Cleo got, really.
mm,
Because there was always a moment of strife to resolve that
yeah,
didn't really let them be the happy fun couple for more than 2 minutes. So
yeah,
that was the sheer emotion of this realization of the love of your life, and then they're gone like that. All you can think about is being in front of them, probably.
yeah. I mean, that's like why I wanted to kind of give her the benefit of the doubt, you know. And then even when everyone else came in, they show like Cleo, Pope, everyone. I think they show John B like checking for his pulse, like just to make
Mm-hmm.
sure he realizes like he's not breathing, he's gone. Even they show like Rafe's face, and he's kind of like,
Yeah,
white as
kind
a
of like
ghost. Like
shock.
yeah, he's definitely in shock. And that's not even like one of his friends, and he's still like, just shook by it. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean the whole yeah,
he's
go ahead.
probably thinking, if that's Topper or Kelsey, he'd probably be in the same emotional distraught state.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Topper and Kelsey are human garbage, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
I did,
Um
since you brought the monologue, I did want to also double down on the emotion of John B's voiceover, because and the line that really stuck with me was when he said JJ's the glue that kept the group together.
mm, yeah, that was well done, that whole monologue, I thought.
Hmm.
Now there are I mean, it was sort of well, I guess it wasn't a new thing. I guess John B has done voiceover before in like previous seasons. There was a little bit of that this second
Yeah.
half of this season. But there were some moments that happened that I was looking back through my notes for the episodes, and I did notice some foreshadowing for JJ being killed or something. So there were definitely moments where I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, that's something that somebody who like would be like very eerie if somebody said or did that thing, and then, not too much longer after that, they end up dead. Like it's kind of like, not like cosmic, but it's just like, it's almost like it was meant to be, like there was just no other way
Uh,
for it to be, right?
yeah, and
Um,
I don't necessarily know where I picked things out as like a foreshadowing was, but I did notice like moments of sacrifice.
um, like something I noticed, well, I noticed a lot of things with Groff that were very telling. In hindsight, the apples and trees thing that JJ, he was the first one to say it, and then Groff kept saying it. The first time was when Groff admits that he made up the whole ghost thing for Wes Jenret, to make him think that he was being haunted by ghosts for this curse and stuff. And JJ's kind of like, well, I would have done the same thing. And then, it's just apples and trees. And then they had that exchange a couple of times, like in realizing that, obviously Groff is this crazy con man, and you have like him realizing that JJ is sort of like him, and you have JJ realizing that he's sort of like his dad. So they just had the apples and trees exchange thing a few times. And then Groff tells JJ that he actually grew up a Pogue on the cut. So, but he did end up marrying Jenret, which is like a very wealthy family. I mean,
Yeah,
if you saw that mausoleum, you'd know that they're freaking filthy
loaded.
rich. Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of sounds to me like unless he hooked Larissa in because they were genuinely in love and like maybe they were, I don't know, but like is it possible that just the way that he was raised, being street smart like JJ as a Pogue, like is it possible that he was just kind of a con man from the start and like manipulated his way into this rich family so he was set for life?
I mean, maybe the treasure hunting gene is genetic, and maybe Larissa
Yeah.
had a taste for a thirst for adventure as well. So, um, Groff with this the Corsair pirate background, maybe he sold her on, hey, let's go get this treasure, and that's how they kind of
Yeah.
came to fruition as a couple.
Yeah, and I think it could be, something where the reason he killed her was because she wanted to do something or she wanted something that he just wanted all for himself and he wasn't going to share it, and that's why he killed her. And speaking of
Or
killing
or
Larissa,
or she did or he did one of his dirty deeds, and she had like a Sophia moment where she's like, no, this isn't right, and he's like, well, no, I'm not going to accept that. Off with your
yeah,
head.
like she confronted him about it the
Yeah.
same way that Hollis did. It's possible. Um so yeah, the moment to me that was kind of crazy was when they're in the car and there's that song House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. Like apparently that song has been covered a lot, but Groff kind of like they're like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go on this chase or let's do this. And then so he's kind of singing along to the song and like JJ's like laughing at him. And that moment, like the message of the song is basically like there's this whole story to it, and like different artists do it differently, like include certain lyrics and include certain parts than other artists do. But basically, the message of the song at the end of the day is like no one stands a chance against the House of the Rising Sun. Like this House of the Rising Sun, that the mysterious that exists. So it's almost like, is it the House of Genret or it's like, was that an indication that just something was off with their relationship when he was singing along to that song that's about that and has that message?
Well, if that's the case, I think it's probably Groff's ego, because the House of Genret has severely fallen.
Yeah.
Especially with the death of JJ, they have no true blood heir. So I think if that's the case, it's Groff's ego more than anything, thinking that he's a Genret just because he married the um whatever the
The
daughter term
daughter
for
of a,
matriarch is. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't want to say matriarch, whatever the daughter term for matriarch is.
like the heir or whatever. But yeah, and then when they're in the car, that same moment when he's singing the song, he's like, "You really remind me of your mother. Like you just look like her or something." And I mean, he killed his mother, so like, was that an indication that he was going to do the same to JJ? Possibly
He does look like her. I mean, when you see that
the blonde
the
thing.
portrait
Yeah.
of her on the wall, I mean, they picked a portrait that looks kind of like JJ.
Yeah, and he Groff liked to mention his mother all the time and to throw it back at him. I don't remember when he says it, but he says, "You're just like your mother, tricking me." I don't know if it was when he was in the hole or I don't remember what it was, but yeah, he's just like always throwing that in his face, like always making that comparison. Like he's not like I mean, he does kind of make reference to like, oh well, I realize that I do that and you do too. Like you must take after me. And and then that's when the whole apples and trees thing started.
Yeah, and like my moments of potential foreshadowing, I guess, would be when we see JJ do things to kind of, for lack of a better word, deify himself to the audience,
Mm,
diving off the boat after Sarah and telling Pope, you shouldn't have thrown yourself in front of the police for me. Let me die. You should let me take the
hmm
bullet, whatever the case may be. Things that JJ, he's not a bad kid, but he's always in the wrong place at the wrong time. So for him to kind of shrug the dirt off his persona of always kind of being the troublemaker. I guess in a certain sense could have been like some kind of um confessional, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And even that conversation where over the fire where they tell Sarah B, John B, she's gonna be Sarah B.
Shipping.
She's gonna be Sarah R, I guess.
Yeah.
Sarah B R. But when they tell everyone about the pregnancy and JJ's like, hey, what would be a great name for a baby that's like gender neutral? And they're like, what? And he's like, JJ. He's like, it
Yeah.
can go either way. So of course, something like that, and the fact that he was going to be made godfather of their child, like to me, that's was a foreshadowing that like he's not going to be around to see that, and maybe they're going to name the baby after him.
Yeah. I mean, I and because he hinted at the unisex nature of his name, I could definitely see that as being an ode,
Mm,
an
yeah.
homage to JJ when the baby's born.
So speaking of Sarah's baby and all of that, so after the crazy cliffhanger, so what awaits us in season 5, do you think? And this will actually be, they've already announced, the creators, that the 5th season will be the last. So what do you think we're going to see in the 5th season to wrap it up?
Pogue revenge tour. It has to be. I mean, it has to be. Well, they got to kill Groff. At this point, getting the crown back is just going to be a bonus, because
Mm,
that's not even that's like the 1B. That's like the 1B prize. The 1A prize is bringing Groff to justice. So,
right.
and you kind of get the sense of the fire in Kiara's eyes. So, and especially now if Rafe's on board with helping them because he sees
Yeah.
their hurt, he sees their pain. So yeah, I'm all for kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, and I could see kind of Rafe leading the charge. I mean, it was his idea basically. They probably wouldn't, I don't know that they would have done anything. Maybe eventually they would have been, the more they stewed and thought about it, they would have been like, you know what, we should go after him. But the fact that he brought it up was just like, you know what, if it were my friend, I'd want to take his ass down and kill him. Like I would
Right.
want to go after him. So I mean, it kind of begs the question, will like the charge be led by like Rafe and John B? Will Sarah stay behind because she's pregnant, or is she going to be running along? Because I mean, that it does worry me a lot. The fact that she was pushed by Ruthie, it worries me. The fact that she's been stressed out, hasn't eaten, she's running around. Like, I just hope, nothing happens. Like, I hope that everything is safe and everything is good going
Fell
forward.
off
But
fell off a boat and got kicked around by violent waves. Throw that on
yeah,
top too.
yeah, like it just worries me. So I hope that she has a safe and normal pregnancy, and that nothing is wrong in this. Like, I hope she does end up having the baby. I hope they name it after JJ.
Yeah, if it's not a miscarriage, that baby's coming out with superpowers.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough baby,
Yeah,
having a mother that runs around in skimpy clothing and all sorts of weather, and then a father that just does whatever he needs to do, like does like boat chases and shit.
yeah. Hey, confidence is key.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just hoping that the main thing, in which I'm assuming is going to take place in like the first few episodes of the 5th season, is that they're going to follow Groff, bring him to justice, and that hopefully Rafe also has a reason to get justice since he was screwed over by Groff. So obviously he wants it too.
Oh yeah, Groff. Like I had said before, Groff. There's zero redemption arc for Groff. Throw
Oh
him, throw
no,
him to the wolves and let him burn.
no, he's trash. He's straight
Yeah,
trash. And then we mentioned the loose end of Poglandia. So we hope that when they get back from bringing Groff to justice, they'll go back, and I mean, I hope it gets resolved, because like seriously, where are they going to live?
Well, I mean, hopefully hopefully they bring the crown back with them, and it's got a nice price tag on it, and they say piss off ZZ. It's our land because we got the money to pay for it now.
Yeah, hopefully that would be the hope.
And a hidden
that they get the blue
and a hidden redemption angle for Luke. Maybe Luke says this was a mistake. I regret signing this deal over.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Luke ends up coming out of this looking, I wouldn't say like a saint, but he ends up looking a lot better than as a father than compared to Groff, doesn't he?
Yeah. The bar is set down here.
The bar is set
Big John, Ward, Luke.
Well, hopefully we set the bar high. So if you enjoyed listening to our show, we would appreciate it if you gave us 5 stars and left us some love. Also, make sure you follow along with us on Instagram and TikTok. I am Binge the Ginge with dots between the words for Instagram, not for TikTok. He is Nutmeg2 Palmetto. So give us both follows on social platforms and stay tuned to the show on YouTube and Rumble for our lovely ginger faces. And then we've got Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. So next time, we're heading to Gotham for Max's The Penguin. Now, this is a dark and serious DC comic show that features an simply unrecognizable Colin Farrell, who, as we know from our Sugar episode, is one of my personal faves. So until the next real review, Red and Red signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
No. Try not. Do. Or do not.
Because I don't want no scrubs.
Let the dogs out, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Blow up! Peace!
Fire, you son of a...
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
Toodaloo, motherfucker. Hey,
It's not funny anymore. TLC references.
Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.